I'd like to yield 5 minutes to my colleague from Alabama, who recognizes the danger of believing that we can negotiate with Al-Qaeda and bin Laden. Mr. Everett.
The gentleman from Alabama is recognized for 5 minutes.
And I thank the ranking member of the Intelligence Committee, my friend from Michigan. Mr. Speaker, I rise today in strong opposition to H. Conrad 63, the Democrats' non-binding resolution that does nothing to improve the outcome of the war, but does much to hurt the war against terrorism. The resolution claims they support the troops. However, regardless of what the previous speaker said, they refuse to protect the money our troops must have while they're in harm's way. If we wanted to have a meaningful debate on the real issues facing this country, we would take up Congressman Sam Johnson's bill that opposes any effort to cut or restrict funding for our military. But that's not the debate we're having today. Instead, we're debating a non-binding resolution that, in my mind, can only hurt our troops who are on the battlefield as we speak, and this resolution can only give comfort to those who wish to kill Americans. Making Iraq a secure place is difficult because of deep-seated religious and ethnic divisions. This is highlighted by the murderous acts of Saddam's dictatorship that killed so many and many thousands. In addition, Al-Qaeda and local terrorists, along with hostile foreign governments, including Iran, have both encouraged and funded the current violence in hopes that Iraq will not follow the path to democracy. They must not be allowed to succeed. Any American life lost in the defense of our nation is one too many. Yet, we must not turn our task of defeating terrorism, must not turn from our task of defeating terrorism before the job is done. President Bush is the commander-in-chief and intends to reinforce American troop strength by 21,000 soldiers to help Iraq's new government finally control violence and restore order. While I believe the decision to increase troop strength in Iraq could have been made much sooner and in greater numbers, it today presents the only viable option to bring in order to the country and laying the foundation for Iraq government to control our nation's security. Iraq's government is taking new steps to control the violence from all ethnic groups and made it clear that our abandoning them at this stage would guarantee failure for democracy in Iraq. And it would ensure a tremendous setback in America's battle to deny terrorism a foothold and give them more chances to continue to kill Americans. Pulling back now with no viable plan to stabilize Iraq would be a disastrous action. This sentiment was expressed in the most recent National Intelligence Estimate on Iraq. Mr. Speaker, as you know, the NIE is the intelligence community's most authoritative written judgments on national security issues and is designed to help us develop policies to protect U.S. national security interests. Specifically, this report states coalition capabilities, including force levels, resources, and operations, remain an essential stabilizing element in Iraq. In addition, it goes on to say, if coalition forces were withdrawn rapidly during the term of this estimate, we judge that this almost certainly would lead to a significant increase in the scale and scope of sectarian conflict in Iraq, intensify Sunni resistance to the Iraq government, and have adverse consequences for national reconciliation. While America must not be in Iraq indefinitely, we should not leave without ensuring that the terrorists that are there are put down. To do otherwise would be terribly short-sighted and would ultimately embolden our terrorist enemies who have made no secret of their desire to continue to kill Americans. As a member of the House Armed Services Committee and the Intelligence Committees, I have monitored the developments in the war on terrorism, including those in Iraq. I met with President Bush in the White House to discuss the military mission in Iraq shortly after he outlined his strategy for Iraq in early January. We explored what would happen in Iraq, the Middle East, and America if we withdrew from the fight before Iraq's democratic government is strong enough to maintain the peace. Our conclusion was that Iraq would become a...
Gentleman's time has expired.
I'll yield an additional minute to my colleague.
The gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Our conclusion was that Iraq would become a sanctuary for terrorists and a base from which they could launch future attacks against Americans. Some members have tried to claim that the war in Iraq has nothing to do with the war on terrorism. That's the only way they can justify this non-binding resolution, and that is pure nonsense. We have the greatest military on the face of the earth, one that no other military dare stand before lest they be destroyed. The only thing that can defeat us is the lack of will. And may God help us if we lose the will to defend this great nation against terrorism. I yield back.